All right, everyone, welcome back to Cheddar. Innovate or die. That, of course, is the guidance given to entrepreneurs and managers in our everly fast-changing world. Our next guest wrote a book about how to get that done. Greg Satell is the author of Mapping Innovation, a playbook for navigating a disruptive age. And Mr. Eric Haller is the Executive Vice President and Global Head at Experian Data Labs. They both join us live on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Good to have you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
All right, Eric, I want to start with you. Today, Experian Data Labs releasing a new study about innovation and the customer-business relationship. Any big findings out of the study that most jump out to you?
Actually, it fortified a lot of what we thought. Our customers, 96% of all the customers surveyed, over 1,000 people surveyed, said they wanted to work with us or work with businesses to innovate. They have problems that they face every day, and they're looking for companies like Experian Data Labs and others to help them solve those problems.
And Greg, what is basically the top advice that you have for businesses that are basically trying to navigate this incredibly disruptive, very interesting age that we're in right now?
Sure. I think the big misconception is that innovation is about ideas. It's not. It's about solving problems. So what I found that the companies that are able to innovate consistently, not a one-hit wonder or somebody who got lucky, but over a course of years or decades, are the ones who have a systematic and disciplined process for identifying these problems. And Experian's one of the best examples of that.
There was one element of the numbers that you released that kind of jumped out to me, and it comes down to this idea of collaborating with other people versus the benefits of working in solitude. And you found nearly 4 in 10, about 37%, find it helps to be in solitude. Is that a statistic that is kind of interesting to you? What's really the feedback you get? Is it more important for entrepreneurs to have a more collaborative, open environment, or you find it increasingly that people say, hey, I like my own ideas, I want to stick to my own lane vertical and try and get things done my way?
Well, I can give you an example where actually the innovation was stimulated in both ways for one particular solution. So we spent a lot of time with customers, largest banks in the country, largest retailers in the country, listening to their problems. And one thing came up in particular, which probably totally resonates with your audience. You go in and you want instant credit in a store. So you walk into, it could be, you're in a shopping mall, you walk in, you do all your shopping, you get to the register, and they go, would you like 20% off your purchase? Would you like to open up an account at the register today? That process hasn't changed in like 20 years. Right. And so our customers are saying, how can you solve this so we can get instant credit into somebody's mobile device? So that's kind of a collaborative thing. We're hearing it. We come back to our labs, and then we've got to figure out technically how are we going to create an environment to make that happen. And there's a lot of deep thinking that takes place.
Sure.
Where you're trying to wrestle through options.
Totally. Eric, I also want to hit on some of the statistics and some data that you guys just did from a recent study that you have. 96% of the participants that you guys researched said that they would welcome the opportunity to help their favorite business innovate. So what age ranges did you see that fascinated you the most, and which one of those are likely to help in which particular industry?
Well, certainly the millennials popped. In fact, the millennials were almost 100% in that survey.
Of course.
So that's kind of what you'd expect. And in fact, a lot of the solutions that we're coming up with out of our labs are actually targeting that particular audience because of that. So we're getting a lot of direct feedback when we're prototyping things, we're taking them out to market. They're actually giving us the feedback that we're looking for so that we can optimize our product and for it to do better in the market.
Greg, are you finding, to Greg specifically, that there are a lot of misconceptions or perhaps missteps that people make when they do attempt, or companies attempt to be disruptors, right? Because we love that word. Everyone's throwing around that word. Everyone wants to be a disruptor in their space. Are there core misunderstandings that you're repeatedly finding some people maybe coming to the table with the wrong approach?
Right. Disruption, as you said, is a bit of a red herring.
It's everywhere, yeah.
What you want to do is go out and find a meaningful problem. So if you look at disruptive companies, what made Apple disruptive? Because Steve Jobs found something he didn't like. He didn't look for what the customer was looking for or anything like that. He wanted to find products that sucked. And once he found a product that sucked, he knew he could remake that industry. So again, it comes back to innovation is not about ideas. It's about going out and finding a meaningful problem and solving it.
One of the other things we talk about in the book, in particular, you say that there's no true path to innovation. I think that's a really interesting way of putting it. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's in business, a lot of times there's the desire to put a lot of structure around a process I grew up in new product development with StageGate like 20 plus years ago, and really what Greg's point in the book is, it's listening to your customers, understanding what that problem is, ideating around how to resolve that, and then creating a path.
But is the idea basically what might have worked for somebody else isn't going to be applicable to you? It's going to be a different case study and a different road every single time. You can take some things from them, but their road and how they've traveled is going to be completely different to how you're going to apply that to business.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see that by vertical markets. So whether you're trying to solve for something for financial services, and it doesn't necessarily translate to mobile network operators or retailers, and so you do find yourself ideating for a very specific type of solution, which requires a lot of different pieces of that puzzle. So.
Greg, you are literally writing a book called Mapping Innovation. Are there any concerns that come across your desk here when you write a book like this that say all these words these worlds are so quickly emerging, they're changing,
especially now, yeah.
Especially now, how do you ensure that essentially what you've written in this book is still going to hold true?
Because next week it could all change.
I wouldn't say most of the stuff hasn't changed that much in the last 100 years or so.
Okay, make your case.
Well, because again, innovation is about solving problems, and the types of problems stay the same.
Right.
Technology changes, trends change, consumers change, but the way you solve a particular problem doesn't really change. In much the same way that we have, super hot data companies like Experian, math hasn't really changed that much in the last 100 years.
All right, that's Eric Haller. He's the Executive Vice President and Global Head over at Experian Data Labs, and Greg Satell. He's the author of Mapping Innovation, a playbook for navigating a disruptive age. Gentlemen, such a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, everyone, coming up.